Hello, this is Ben Television News Roundup, a compilation of major stories in the week ending. I am Tunde Alabi. Thank you for being part of the program today. British Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs Boris Johnson has said everybody in the UK must support the British people's decision expressed in the referendum to leave the European Union. Boris Johnson expressed fears that some people are determined to stop Brexit and reverse the referendum. He disclosed this in a speech Wednesday.
In some cases, alas, I detect a hardening of the mood and a deepening of the anger. I fear that some people are becoming ever more determined to stop Brexit, to reverse the referendum vote of June the 23rd, 2016, and to frustrate the will of the people. I believe that would be a disastrous mistake that would lead to permanent and ineradicable feelings of betrayal. We cannot and will not let it happen. But if we are to carry this project through to national success, as we must, then we must also reach out to those who still have anxieties. And I want today to anatomize at least some of the fears and to show, to the best of my ability, that these fears can be allayed and that the very opposite is true, that Brexit can be grounds for much more hope than fear. And I think there are essentially three types of concern about the momentous choice the nation has made. The first is that this is simply a strategic or geostrategic mistake. On this view, Britain is an offshore island comprising fewer than 1% of humanity, and we need to be bound up in the European Union for protection, partly for our own protection, and partly so that Britain can fulfil its historic role of providing protection for other countries of the European continent. I come across quite a few people who think that Brexit has cast us adrift, made our geostrategic position somehow more vulnerable, while weakening the security of the whole of Europe. The second anxiety, that by voting to leave the EU, we have sundered ourselves from the glories of European civilization. People believe that we have thrown up a figurative drawbridge, made it less easy to live, study, work abroad, and decided to sacrifice the Europeanness in our identities. They fear that the Brexit vote was a vote for nationalism and small-mindedness and xenophobia. They think it was illiberal and reactionary, and that the British have shown the worst of their character to the world, indeed that it was in some sense un-British. And the third objection is the one that occupies most of the debate, the economic fear that we have voted to make ourselves less prosperous, that membership of the EU is vital for UK business and investment, and that the panoply of EU legislation has helped to make life easier for companies and for citizens. People fear the disruption they associate with change, and that our friends and partners in the EU may make life difficult for us. Sometimes these economic anxieties are intensified by other fears, the others about identity and security, so that hitherto recondite concepts like the single market or the customs union acquire unexpected emotive power. Well, look, I believe whatever the superficial attractions of these points, they can be turned on their head. And I want to show you today that Brexit need not be nationalist, but can be internationalist. It's not an economic threat, but a considerable opportunity. Not un-British, but a manifestation of this country's historic national genius. And I can see, obviously, that I'm running the risk in making this case of simply causing further irritation. But I must run that risk, because it is this government's duty to advocate and explain the mission on which we are now engaged. And it has become absolutely clear to me that we cannot take the argument for granted. We cannot expect the case to make itself. That was the mistake of the pro-EU elite in this country when they won the last referendum in 1975.
The US Senate has resumed debate on different immigration proposals before it. However, some senators have disagreed with the debate proposals, insisting that the main and only issue before the Senate remains how to secure the future of dreamers. Time, however, appears to be running out, with March 5th deadline for DACA recipients.
Gutierrez.
A solution for dreamers.
The people!
Lawmakers say they want to see one by the end of this week, but could not agree on how to get started.
Common sense dictates that we cannot simply treat one symptom of our broken immigration policy in complete isolation. We must address the underlying problems as well. That means fixing broken parts of our legal immigration system.
The Senate has a multitude of bills combining border security, employment verification, and sweeping changes to the nation's immigration levels in return for a DACA fix. A deal for another time, Democrats say.
This week, we're not here to debate comprehensive immigration reform. We're not here to debate the numerous types of visas that exist under U.S. law. We're not here to debate how mayors run their cities or how police officers do their jobs. We're here to protect dreamers. We're here to address a crisis that President Trump started last September when he ended DACA.
But if DACA recipients secure a path to citizenship, Republicans want the nation's immigration levels balanced out in other areas.
We've got an immigration system where about 3/4 of everybody that comes to this country come purely because of a family relationship. Right now, it's just a random selection that doesn't really tie to our needs as a nation and for our economic growth, for our economic security.
And with each side unwilling to give the other the benefit of a political victory,
we will not stand by and allow dreamers to be held hostage, political hostage, to the administration's entire immigration agenda.
moderates negotiating a narrowly focused bipartisan bill protecting dreamers in return for border security may be the only way forward.
The big question then would be, if it got 60 votes in the Senate, what would its prospects be when it went over to the House? And there, again, the chances of a majority of House members supporting that proposal, I think, are pretty good. But the real question would be, would a majority of Republican House members support it?
With Thursday set to be Congress's last day in session before a week-long break, time for a battle of the bills is running out.
Also, 2018 congressional election in the United States has been described as a referendum vote on President Donald Trump. With all 435 seats in the House of Representatives and 34 of the 100 Senate seats at stake, President Donald Trump has challenged his supporters to mobilize for the elections. President Trump has also expressed more concerns as midterm elections have historically not been very good to sitting presidents.
Looking ahead to the November congressional elections, President Donald Trump is worried his supporters may not be motivated to vote.
They sort of take it for granted. They sit back, and then they get clobbered because the other people are desperate. And they get out, and they have more energy. But I think because of what we've done, because of the tremendous success we've had, I have a feeling that we're going to do incredibly well in 2018. And I have to say this. History's not on our side.
The president's party usually loses seats in midterm elections, and this year should repeat the pattern, says Jim Kessler of the research organization Third Way.
But, you have a very unpopular president, and if Democrats take a broad path, they should win lots and lots of seats.
Trump hopes to rebound from a year of historically low poll ratings by focusing on the strong economy and his tax bill. That should help Republicans, says Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell.
My view of this, if we can't sell this to the American people, we ought to go into another line of work.
Democrats are encouraged after statewide victories last year in Alabama and Virginia, where they made Trump a central issue. Party activist and billionaire Tom Steyer has financed an ad campaign calling for Trump's impeachment.
My fight is in removing Donald Trump from office and from power. And that starts with taking the House back in 2018.
Republicans hope the economy will boost Trump's poll ratings over time, says Michael Barone.
And he's taking an optimistic tone. He's following up on the indications that the economy is growing at a pretty healthy rate.
But many voters, especially the president's critics, are likely to see the midterms as a referendum on Trump, according to analyst John Hudak.
The president will be the defining factor in the 2018 election. There are many out there who argue that Democrats won't be successful in 2018 because they don't have this broad, well-defined agenda. But in reality, out parties don't need to.
Democrats need to gain 24 House seats and 2 seats in the Senate to win a majority in both chambers.
Former South African President Jacob Zuma was forced to resign from office following the decision of his party, the ANC, to move forward and support a vote of no confidence against him in the parliament. Jacob Zuma has been dogged by a series of allegations ranging from abuse of office to corruption.
For years, Zuma's opponents have demanded his resignation and an investigation into fraud and corruption allegations against him. He has survived several no-confidence votes in the parliament with the support of his African National Congress party. But this time, the lawmakers of the ruling ANC have made it clear he has lost their support. The opposition welcomed the decision.
As you know, we've been calling all week for this motion to be fast-tracked. I think that all parties are united in wanting to remove President Zuma and to start writing a new chapter.
Faced with a forcible ouster, Zuma announced his voluntary resignation in a televised address to the nation Wednesday.
I do not fear exiting political office. However, I have only asked my party to articulate my transgressions, and the reason for its immediate instruction that I vacate office.
Zuma's rule was marred with scandals, and many South Africans wanted him impeached for using state funds to renovate his private country home. On Wednesday, the police raided the luxury home of the Indian-born Gupta family of rich entrepreneurs with alleged corrupt links to the president.
Finally, something's being done about it. Yeah. And these guys must get out of our country. They must leave us alone. They've done enough damage now.
The ANC issued a statement saying Zuma's resignation provided certainty to the people of South Africa. The former ANC fighter who rose through the party ranks to become president is leaving the country's economy in tatters. For some people, this was the main reason they wanted to see him go.
I really believe that he should step down because I want South Africa, just like other South Africans, I believe, I want him to step down and resign so that we can have a better South Africa and, basically more jobs and everything else that he wasn't doing for us.
Zuma is replaced by his deputy Cyril Ramaphosa, who was elected as ANC's new leader in December.
Zimbabweans have been mourning the death of the country's main opposition party leader, Morgan Tsvangirai. Mr. Tsvangirai died Wednesday following a cancer treatment in a South African hospital.
Mugabe and ZANU-PF think that they will win it. But in the face of unfree and unfair conditions, I don't think the forthcoming election will be legitimate. It doesn't matter who wins. I recognize the honor you have bestowed on me. I know the depth of your feelings, and I know the nation's expectations.
We in the MDC have resolved that we will no longer participate in this violent, illegitimate sham of an election process. Okay, guys. I want to assure you that the people's victory is assured, in spite of the regime's attempts to subvert the people's will through other fraudulent activities that have been unearthed. I have signed this agreement because I believe it represents the best opportunity for us to build a peaceful, prosperous, democratic Zimbabwe. I, Morgan Richard Tsvangirai, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Zimbabwe and observe the laws of Zimbabwe. So help me God. takateerera zvamakadhimanda, takateerera kuti for everything else to happen in this country, tinoda kuti ma-opposition parties mubatane.
It is very sad in the politics of Zimbabwe that we have lost such a leader, because we need such opposition, such kind of opposition, a strong opposition. That guy was a very big opposition leader. You could, he is one of those guys who managed to mount a serious challenge to ZANU-PF. So we need the opposition here in Zimbabwe because it provides checks and balances in our politics.
He was one of our major political players. It's a loss to the country, and I'm not sure now what MT is going to do, but it's a loss which is difficult to replace.
With that report on the death of Mr. Sam Grai, this is how far we can go on News Roundup this week. Thank you for being part of the program. I'm Today Alabia. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye. Regardless, residents status abroad, living outside the shores of one's homeland can really be challenging and sometimes very difficult. Let's be sincere, to keep pace with artists from the host country abroad can really be difficult. Here on Dialogue in Diaspora, we give you every information, every news, every current issue you need to know on artists outside the UK. Dialogue in Diaspora is your link between the world and the United Kingdom. It's your window to African development. Here, live on Ben Television.